Well, it's Monday morning, a Monday morning anyway, this particular Monday morning. And it's back, um, relaxing, painting, and doing other stuff with Dice and Dungeons. Yep, I was gone for, like over a week. So it was 2 weeks ago on Monday. That was the last time I did the stream. Just had some things that needed to be done, and they got done, and now I'm back. So there. And if I'm a little bit incoherent, it's because there was some jet lag involved with that as well. Yes, your main screen doesn't show anything. Let me just show you the parts here, at least. At least you can see that there are things that I've been kind of working on. So this week, because there are still things that need to be done, it's just been, I don't know, sometimes things just are not relaxed. There's always something. And that's sort of been the case over the last month. Well, one thing I can tell you is that I streamed 2 weeks ago on Monday. And then on Wednesday, I wouldn't have been able to stream anyway because our power went out because we had a big storm on Tuesday, and the power didn't go out during the storm. It's kind of weird because it was pretty bad. We lost a couple of trees that still need to be taken care of, and but the power went out the next day, probably because they were upstream. They did some like temporary fixes, and they had to turn off a whole subsection in order to rewire stuff. Anyway, so you didn't miss anything a week ago Wednesday, but then, and then the week of July 4th, I didn't do that because I was out and about. But now I'm back this week, at least. But there's always a but, and this but is that I'll probably be doing half days. That is, I'll be going from 10 until about 12 or 12:30 because there's other things happening. Yeah, if this were a job, these other things probably would have to be set aside, but it's an unpaid internship. And so, yeah, anyway, what I'm trying to do is apologize in an incoherent fashion for the irregular schedule that has happened over the last month and will probably remain irregular for the rest of the summer. Well, what I'm working on, just to remind myself, if nothing else, because it's been a while, is I've got all these parts. These parts are part of the ascent stage of the Lunar excursion module, or LEM. And these are little astronaut figures that go with the model that I'm working on. And before I, got erratic in the schedule, I was able to get a lot of these pieces. They took a lot of work. I'll just say that, in terms of sanding and shaping and seam filling and things, but now they're attached. Okay. And it would seem like a very straightforward process to glue the two halves together and, paint it. It's all painted one color. So except for all the nooks and crannies and crevices, which will make painting a little bit of a challenge, it's going to be a major rubber glove holding it and rotating it, trying to find how to get all of it adequately covered. It would seem pretty straightforward, but I've got to somehow get the windows attached to the inside of the LEM. And those windows are not just straightforward pieces of done plastic, they have to be cut out. They have to be cut out of little thin sheets of plastic. Okay. And for practice, I've been using the covers of a carryout container. The model came, the model came with a template. The window pattern that was supposed to be used to cut out the sheet of plastic. But it turns out that this isn't really the shape of the windows. The shape of the windows are scalene, I guess. That's the right kind of triangle, and that one side is actually longer than the other. And this is isosceles. So when I used the window pattern to test them, they didn't really fit. So I've been playing around with other ways of cutting out shaping the windows, and it seems to be working. I can, in fact, cut out windows. You can see this one, maybe. I don't know if you can see that. You see it there? Yeah, that's your scalene. This side is longer than that side. And then, of course, this corner, which is longer, which is the corner that goes into in the nose of it, the very point, this end here. Okay, that's the longer side. You can see how that is. That bumps up against the vertical here, the side of it. And if you looked on the inside, you'd see how it bumps up there. Actually, it's the opposite. It's the outside that bumps up against the side. So there's lots of room here for this corner to adhere, and this one, but here I have to cut it off because it bumps up against it and it doesn't set. So I got to practice with doing that, and I'm going to, one of those things I'm going to have to do, and I'm not sure, if it'll be today or Wednesday, is continue to practice getting these to the right shape and then holding them with the tweezers and setting them in place so that they actually adhere. And it looked like it was going to be pretty straightforward, but it kind of turned out not to be. Like these two edges near the bottoms of the triangle here are nice and flat, right? But this is at an angle to those. And so if you lay it flat on here, it doesn't lay flat on here and here. And so the adhesion point on the top is like almost non-existent. So yeah, I've been practicing with how to get them into place because you can't really just stick them on with one's finger. And I've also been practicing with different kinds of adhesive. I used contact cement. I used model cement. I used this thing called doesn't even really have a name. It's supposedly the world's best canopy thing. Clear parts cement. The clear parts cement worked pretty well. Initially, but it doesn't hold very well. Okay, it's really easy to pop it out again, and that's important because the windows have to go in before this is put together. Obviously, because once the two halves are put together, you can't reach in to do that. But then the whole thing needs to be put together, and the seams, which will show pretty badly, need to be filled and sanded before it's painted. So the windows have to go in, but then they have to be masked very carefully because of all the pointy bits, right? And masking on it means pushing down on it, and pushing down on it means that if it doesn't adhere very well, even if I put a masked finger behind it, then they'll pop off. And if they pop off, then I have to start all over again, which I couldn't do because the masking happens Actually, I can do that. I just thought of that. I can mask this before I put the halves together. Yeah. Huh. It's amazing what you think of when you start thinking, which for me doesn't happen apparently all that often. But yeah, I can. I can put the windows in. And once I get that done, and it'll probably take multiple attempts, because the cement or whatever adhesive I use will smear. And if I can't clean it up, I'll have to take them out and start with a new one. But yeah, I can do the masking before I put the halves together. I'll have to try to remember that when it comes time to actually doing things like that. These are samples. This one I thought, well, let's see what happens if I use the clear canopy stuff. If it dribbles or gets onto the outer surface, maybe I can just coat the whole outer surface. And it is possible. It is possible to use that, the clear canopy stuff, to just coat the entire surface if it became necessary, as one of the ways of making this work. But these now are trash, and there, put them over the side. So this is the model I'm working on. I've got the escape tower done. I've got the service module done, and it's pretty cool. It opens up, and you can see some of the inside. I've got the parts for the fairing, the container for the lunar module upon which everything else sits. I've got those ready to go, but I haven't assembled it yet. I have not yet cemented the hinges on to it, and that's something I'll end up having to do at some point. But right now I'm working on the ascent stage of the lunar module, and then over here in another box, just to show you that I've got stuff. Okay. These are all the parts to the descent stage of the lunar excursion module. It's got this little rocket nozzle thing and all sorts of landing struts, all sorts of little parts that are very poorly done, which means that they've got, like each of these little things are supposed to be round, but they've got ridges on them from the injection molding, and then there's this whole container of little parts that fell off the trees. I started with the ascent module first because I thought it would be easier, but that was wrong. Well, I don't know. We'll find out when I get to this. This part's pretty cool because a lot of this stuff is painted gold, like the landing struts, and there's gold foil that goes around the outside of the descent stage. So that'll be an interesting thing when I get to it, which will be at the pace I'm going next to forever. So the things to be done today are maybe continuing to paint the astronaut figures. Maybe I'll do that. The standing on the moon guy is not at all accurate to the real thing, but I could work on those. Actually, the only three things I can work. The three things I can work on today are painting the little astronaut guys and fiddling around with the windows on the excuse me. Yep. Jet lag thing. The windows on the descent stage. And then I suppose what I could do is I could put together the fairing, the base of all of this, but I'm kind of holding off on that because I don't have any place to store it once it's done. As pieces, I have a nice little box, but once it's put together, it's just a big thing. Service module I could store. This thing is just sitting out collecting dust right now, which is not good because it's got all sorts of little parts on it that are next to impossible to dust. Good morning. Thanks for joining in. I know I'd been away for a while. but I'm back this week. Half sessions this week. I'll only be going till about 12 or 12:30 because there are afternoon bits every day this week. But yes, okay. The other thing I want to do is this. This is a nice little container here. These are the reaction control jets that mount on these brackets, and these brackets. But that'll be at the very end after this whole thing is assembled and painted. But I'm a little concerned about this because it turns out I'm not the only one using this workshop. And so when I came down today, things were kind of moved around. So I've got this little container with a cover on it. Okay, so when the cover is closed and it gets knocked over, they won't get lost. So this, here, I'm going to do something. I'm going to put these reaction control jets in this little container. There's 16 of them. This is pretty exciting, isn't it? Watching me move these little bitty things into a container where hopefully they won't spill. I'm counting them. Yep. 10, 11. They're really tiny. 13, 14, and difficult to attach. And you can see I'm doing this over this box because if I were to drop one of these onto the floor, it would be lost forever. And I can't afford to lose these because I don't have any replacements. Okay, now they're contained. And it feels much safer. Okay, this is the plastic material I've been it's not very good right now. You can see it's all full of bubbles and stuff. But this is what I've been practicing with for the windows of the Lunar module. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on painting these astronaut figures. This tiny little painting stuff. This is the standing inside the LEM guy. It's supposed to be. This is another one of those things that needs to be done before I put it together. It's supposed to stand in the middle, which is not how it was actually done. Okay. When they were landing the LEM, the astronauts stood. My fingers are not working. So the astronaut was. Can you see that? No. Let me try to get the angle right here. There. See, when it was landing the LEM, the astronaut. There he is. The astronaut was standing behind one of the windows, but if you stand in the middle, then you can't really see out the windows very well. But they're the way this thing is built, or designed or whatever. There isn't any. The only flat spot is in the center where you don't want to be when you're trying to look out the window, landing the lamp, peeking out the window like that. Right? So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I'm not sure I'm even going to put the astronaut figure in. Odds are really high that if I cement the astronaut figure in at all, and then I, finish working on the rest of the model, that it isn't going to adhere adequately, and it'll fall off, and then it'll be rattling around inside forever, because if it breaks off after this thing is put together, there is actually a way I can get it out. The guy will go through this hatch on the top. Anyway, that's a challenge. It was almost done. The soles of its boots need to be made gray. To paint those gray. I've got some nice gray paint here that I used for the gloves and the sitting inside the command module astronaut figures. I'm going to do this on the standing on the moon guy as well. The lunar excursion suits, the outside suits on the moon suits, had the big gold visor on them, and the gloves were really dark gray. So that's the color I painted them, and their fingertips are painted blue because this is the actual moon suit. The fingertip on the gloves are blue because they're a different material than the rest of the glove. So anyway, you will never be able to see this if it's installed inside the lunar module, but there it is. This figure, which is standing on the moon, will be outside. I'm going to do the same thing because that's an authentic thing. Yeah, so I started painting these guys. I need to paint their faces. The helmets should be glossier. I wonder if I'm going to look to see if I have a slightly glossier white color that I could use to paint the helmets. Because when these are sitting inside the model, their heads are going to be right near the door. And you'll be able to see it. So the helmet should be just slightly distinct from the rest of the sort of matte white suit. There isn't a whole lot of color on these, and there is, you can see that on the original suit. There isn't. It's just basically white except for these patches, which are not on these models. But there's some features, some highlight features that are molded into these little figures that do not exist on the real moon suits that I think I'm going to paint just to give them a little bit of inauthentic liveliness. And maybe I'm going to try to paint like the inside of the helmet, not the helmet itself, but like the edges of it. Just since everything is white on white on white, maybe I'll see if I can find a really nice light color to paint around to give it a little highlight. Oh, yeah, enough talking. How much time did I waste? Almost a half hour. That's good. That's a good thing to do. I'm going to be using my head magnifier while doing this. So those of you who might be fairly new to this is not a how-to show. I am not a master modeler. I am not a good painter. My hand is mostly steady, but not always, because, old. And anyway, I'm just trying to make it look good. And it's kind of coming out that way. So far, things are going okay with this model, but it's slow because I don't know what I'm doing some of the times, and I just have to talk my way through it, like how to attach the windows and how to mask them once they're attached. I'm going to paint the soles of boots. I'm going to save this walking on the moon guy until later. That'll be like an entire stream probably. But I'm going to paint the soles of the boots, and then I'm going to color chart. I've got like 3 different white paints, right? One that's sort of shiny. Dead white is as close as it comes. I've used dead white with some success in the past. That's the name of the color. I'm just reporting what it is, what it's called. Dead white, which is a pretty nice white. I'm going to try to paint the outsides of the helmets with that. The other thing I'm going to do, get my coffee. I set the mug back there, and I've been doing that before the stream ever since I spilled a mug of coffee on the table, the workbench. It was really pretty awful in terms of having to do cleanup. These are my head magnifiers, and when I put them on, it gives me 2x magnification and and an extra light, which actually makes a difference for me. Yeah, boots. Be painting boots. I'm gonna use the standing on the moon guy, and well, they're moon suits anyway. Had really dark colored gloves and light colored soles. Okay, and so the soles. I used the lighter color on this sitting in the capsule astronauts because their suit is different than the walking on the suit. So I'm going to use this lighter gray on the boots because that's close to the color that they appear to be in my pictures of the real spacesuits. I don't know if you can see it, but this guy is glossier white. I painted them all this kind of glossy color, and then it's just like, the spacesuits weren't shiny. But for sitting inside the LEM, it actually will reflect the light better. So if this is successfully installed inside the Lunar excursion module, and I can get its feet to stick to the floor of it by applying an excessive amount of model cement, if I'm successful in doing that, then I decided to leave it glossy because it'll reflect the light better and be able to see it better through the little window. The way these models were injection molded, the boundary of the parts of the boots that are supposed to be gray versus the parts that are supposed to stay white is far from clear. Quite poorly made. Not the astronauts' boots. The astronauts' boots are fine. But anyway, I'm going to paint their boots. I'm going to look at these guys. Yeah, there's all these little embellishments on here that don't really exist on the real moon suits to try to paint them anyway. Developing my how am I going to paint this? So poorly made. I'm looking at the seams too. They're a little. It came in two pieces and they didn't fit together very well. Well, you're going to be able to see the top of my balding head while I bend over painting the soles of boots. Actually, I'm not going to paint the soles of the boots on this guy. Why did I say that? I'm going to paint the tops of the boots. I don't want to paint the bottoms because the bottoms have to be cemented on. And there's already paint on them. I don't need more. This is where I have to work to get it, stay on camera. Every once in a while I will look up to see whether or not I am actually on camera. In the real astronaut suits, that is where I am painting it, is not where the gray part is, but this model, it is. So keep in mind that this is not historically accurate because these little guys were not molded in a historically accurate. In this case, it doesn't much matter. This is sort of like I'm practicing basically, because if this figure is installed in the lunar module the way it's supposed to be, it would be impossible to see these boots. Am I even doing this? I don't know. Because like I said, if this figure is installed as the instructions suggest it should be, these boots will be impossible to see. The only way you'd be able to see them is if this figure becomes detached, which is quite possible, and is fished out through the hatch. Which is at the top of the lunar module. But this is practice painting. I'm getting back. I haven't done this in 2 weeks. So I'm practicing painting little bits of things while viewing them through my head magnifier. And let's get gray boots. Okay, let's see what's going on with these. These boots you will be able to see these boots. You look in through the hatch of the there's a spot there. This is the same color that I used for the gloves earlier. So I can do touch up on the gloves while I'm doing the boots. Yeah, so far this isn't awful. Okay, so these boots have like straps across the top. And it's really tempting. It's really tempting to actually paint them a different color. Like I said, this is just like all white. There's just there's nothing going on. Why is there a spot? That's in the middle of that. Well, I'm going to paint that strap anyway. Just, totally inauthentic color scheme on these suits. Because, yeah, because it just is. Really don't like holding them with my hand while I'm painting like this, but I can't think of any other way to do it, really. So I'm just gonna add a bunch of color to these astronaut suits. Um, that is like 100% inauthentic, just to make them look a little more interesting. If I ever get this done, which is, you just never know. But if I ever get to the point where these astronauts are glued in, because they'll be cemented in, not belted in like in real life, cemented into their astronaut seats inside the command module. They won't just look like mummies. Get some, just puts like that thing down the center of his chest. I have no idea what that's supposed to be, because it doesn't show up on any pictures of any spacesuits that I've seen. But there it is. And since it's there, I'll do something. But now, if you peer in the tiny little windows of the command module, or if you look in through the tiny little hatch, which looks too small for these to get through, you look at the right angle with the right amount of light, which is going to be really close to impossible to do, you'll be able to see gray boots. It's going to paint the bottoms as well, because so these are not attached to anything. And it gives me an opportunity to put more paint on something. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk a little bit about Dyson Dungeons, as I haven't done that in a while because I haven't been here doing this. So Dyson Dungeons is primarily a Dungeons and Dragons show. Put on an excellent Dungeons and Dragons show. We are doing a very intricate campaign and created by our dungeon mistress. And that streams with a live chat 3 Sundays a month, with some exceptions for like holidays, like, holiday weekends when we know no one's going to be watching, at least in the States, United States, because that's where we are in the United States, and those are the holidays we have. Like we just had one last week, Thursday, July 4th. Anyway, where's I going? This is a part of this, a feature. This is a feature of this stream, is that I will start talking and then get off onto another pathway. And not always. Usually I'll come back around again to what I was really talking about. What I was talking about, though, was our Dungeons and Dragons show, which streams with a live chat on Twitch on the 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern time, Eastern U.S. time. And you should watch it because it's really, really good. And that's what we are all about, is really that show. If you don't catch it with the live chat on Twitch, you can look up previous episodes. They end up being posted on this thing called YouTube. And you can also listen to them on this thing called a podcast. And if you're new to it, please do that. It's really a good show. We enjoy making it, and the people who have been watching it or listening to it seem to enjoy it as well. And this particular stream, which happens on mostly Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 until 2, except when it hasn't been, which has been the case lately because of things. Why didn't I paint the back? Did I not paint the backs of these gloves? You're not going to be able to see the backs of these gloves, but I didn't even try on them. Got distracted by what I was actually doing. Weird. Anyway, this stream started because we produce amazing dungeon tiles, which I will maybe get around to showing. I like to do that at least, if not every stream, with some frequency during this stream. We produce our own dungeon tiles for when we get into combat and things. And then we hand paint them so that they look really cool. And our DM decided that it would be a good thing to do, since we were just painting dungeon tiles anyway, stream it. And so that's how this started. It was streaming the painting of the tiles, dungeon tiles that we use in our D&D show. And then when we got all the ones we needed for the show, she said, well, why don't you just keep streaming? And I said, okay. And I had all these models laying around for when I retired that I never got around to building. How did I get little spots of paint on the white all over the place? Look at that. To do some touching up, because I did that. No matter how careful I am, things like that just seem to keep happening. Maybe it's because I'm slightly inattentive. Maybe it's because my hand's not as steady as it should be. Not as it should be as I would wish it to be. So there's this tiny little spot of gray paint on the white suit. And the paint The white paint that I've got on here is like an aerosol. It's a spray can. Okay. So I can't just pull the bottle up. And wait. And as I'm talking to myself, I should probably wait to do the white touch up until I'm done with all the color stuff, because there's probably going to be more spots that need to be fixed that I will create inadvertently as I somehow or other manage to get paint on spots where I don't. So yeah, the reason I'm doing like this Apollo thing, and before that, the epic submarine, the Renwell cutaway George Washington nuclear missile launching submarine prototype, is because there weren't any more dungeon tiles to do, and there weren't any more minifigs to paint, and so started building models. When I retired, I bought like 3 dozen of these things. I've got a whole basement full of plastic models. I thought I would be bored out of my mind and I needed something to do, and it turned out that I never got around to even building these things. What I did when I was a kid, 8 until about 16 or so, I used to build plastic models, but back in the day, I didn't really have any paints. Yeah, this is okay. This is not great. Back in the day, I didn't paint them like this, or I didn't sand down the seams, and I didn't fill in the gaps. And so sad inside their suits and looking at their face. Yeah, I guess I would. Yeah, they got gray boots. Yeah, I use water to wash the brushes, and put too much water in that, and as I moved it, I spilled. It's going to be that kind of day. So yeah, I started doing these models. And when I was young, I didn't paint them. I just cemented them together, and the cement got all over everything. Fingerprints imprinted into the sides of B-29s and stuff like that. But now I'm very, very carefully at my skill level of not that much. Um, Trying to make them look decent. I'm not sure. I don't know if you can see it. There's this like thing that goes right down the center of the suit, which doesn't exist on any of the spacesuits that I've seen. Um, things. And I'm wondering if I should paint that whole thing. Should just paint like the buttons and the buckles. This has got like 4 layers of white paint on it. Thinking I can get rid of the spot, and that the layers underneath being white on white on white. It's white plastic with a white primer, with a white overcoat, with a white repaint. You get it off. Try to repaint it. Okay. We'll do the same thing with that gray spot on the other. So that was so far. So yeah, I'm going to paint these little dots in the buckle. And then there's a little buckle there. See what color I used on this. Dark aluminum, maybe. It's pretty dark. I'm going to use a slightly lighter silver. Pure aluminium. Oh no, I used gunmetal. Okay. Because these paints are a little more viscous and easier to use. Yeah. I'm going to use chainmail silver if I can find it. So here we go, mixing up another color paint. Let me see if I can get rid of this spot. Where is it? On the same one? No, I'm not seeing the very obvious gray spot. It's weird. There was a very obvious gray spot that needed to come off, and now I can't find it because of things. Oh, what else am I seeing? Oh, there's a little thing here on the arm. Buckles, these things. And yeah, so I'm going to put some metallic paint on just some of these highlighted features. And as I'm doing that, I'm sure I'll see that little spot of gray that I needed to fix before. Plastic palette thing, which is designed for like first grade and second grade painting things. This one, I think they come by the dozen, really. And this one's about used up its useful life. It's about gone. I keep things and clean them and use them way past longer. They're meant to be used like once and thrown away. I'm cheap, and I got paint on my fingers. I mean, I understand if I got it on this hand because this is the one I was using to hold the figure. Stuff has a life of its own. It just like jumps out. Really, it's like I'm nowhere near it, and it just jumps out and it attacks me. So it's a little buckle there at the base of the helmet. Attachment points. It doesn't, I mean, really do that much, but it's, otherwise everything is just white on white on white, even though this is definitely inauthentic. Makes it more interesting to look at. And then for some reason, there's this thing on the left arm, square thing. And this little square thing is going to be silvery. I mean, for whatever reason, it looks more interesting. These sort of colors. It's kind of a buckle on the top there too. I didn't notice how it. Um, Heard that it's okay to start playing the music again. Okay, here's a before and after. You see that looks a little bit more interesting than that, just because it's got like little metal spots on it. I think I was told that we can start playing the music again, and that would be a good thing because I just don't have anything to say, and things go quiet. And we have some really good music from Alexander Knocker. And if I could play that, it would be good. It would be much better than just little moments of silence. Gotten confirmation of that, and I'm trying to get that. I'll try to find out for sure if I can play the music or not. If I can just turn it on the way it was, or if I need to do something different. I think it would be a good. It's just really good and interesting music, and it fills the space instead of me trying to figure out what to drone on. Pick this. This is a good color for this. Shiny without being too bright. Yeah, it would be good if I could play the music because I know it's just better with the music. I'm going to ask about it. Um, finish my stream early today. It'll be finishing around 12 or 12:30. Check then to see if I can play the music. And if I need to do anything special, you know, wait, let's do. This is going okay. Through my 2x magnifier, it looks kind of B minus quality. But look at it from just, it looks okay. There's the spot. It's the spot I was looking for before that needs to be cleaned off. Before I stop painting silver, I'm just going to look at them and it's going to be like this. And just, there's some spots that maybe need a little bit more paint. One lesson I've learned is how important it is to just keep rotating the model because things look so different from different angles. Unusual if I paint something, and I rotate it around, that I find that I like missed a spot or got a spot that I wanted to miss, that kind of thing. So these little guys, yeah, look, they just look more interesting that they have, these non-authentic whatever belts and stuff on the front have a little paint on them. Okay, so the helmet. I'm gonna test the white, the white on the back of. Wish I had something I could just test it on. No, it's not going to hurt. This is like white on white on white on white on white. Seriously, I'm going to be putting white paint on a layer of matte white, which is on a layer of glossy white, which is on a layer of matte white, which is on white plastic. They had this really nice pure white, it's called, but it's a little shiny, which is exactly what I want for the helmets, but it's in a spray can. And that just makes it next to impossible to use in a situation like this. I can't, there's no way I'm going to successfully mask those helmets so I can spray them. But I can put this other white on, which will give it a little bit of contrast, I think. I don't know. Like I said, I hope it doesn't hurt. Right? What I'm hoping to do here is just add a little bit of gloss. The two. Again, I wish I had a way of testing it. That's some pearlescent paint that would actually just add a little bit of gloss to it. But I think that just wouldn't work very well. To introduce some like dust or dirt or something. I'm not sure that this is accomplishing much of anything, but I started it. Might as well finish it. Yeah, I'm not sure that this is accomplishing anything really meaningful at all, other than maybe putting brush marks where there weren't any before. But maybe, maybe it will give a little bit of textural difference. Again, this is going to be, one of those things that no one is going to be able to see. Um, to paint their faces, so I have to figure out what all the flesh tones. I've never been happy with any of the flesh tones, really. I understand that there are some good ones. Ole Brogger, you should check out Ole Brogger's Brogger stream, who is a master modeler and does amazing things and does you know, I mean, like a professional level editing and stuff with their stream. It's pretty incredible compared to this crude um, knowing what I'm doing, painting over a piece of cardboard kind of thing that you got here. Anyway, um, Brock told me that there are some good flesh tones. I just need to find them. Need to find them in this country anyway. Um, well, let's look at flesh tones. Let me take these off for a second. At some point, they need to be painted. Oh, geez, I probably should do things like paint their eyes too. Oh, that's going to be. We'll just see how this turns out. There's always flesh, which looks really not very good. Okay, I got flat flesh, I got bronze flesh, I got medium flesh. Um, got some of these other minifigs for a second. I painted some of these little minifigs before. That doesn't look too bad really in combination with other colors. I like how this came out. I remember painting this a little while ago. it required a fair amount of repair. The wings got broken, the arrow point got broken. Actually, one of the parts of the bow broke off. So there was a fair amount of repair on this and fabrication, but it came together okay. Anyway, this is one of these days I might go back to painting minifigs if we ever get some again, and then I'll be able to do stuff like this as opposed to painting little miniature astronaut figures. On this one, yeah, that's not going to work. I'm going to just use flat flesh, I guess. Flat flesh for flat astronauts. So always keep your workbench clear. Put things away when you're done with them. Not like I do, where they just pile up and make the work surface smaller and smaller. Okay. Don't do what I do. Do what I tell you to do, which is to not do what I do. Yellow ochre. Flesh tone. And weird. I'm just pulling out. I'm pulling out paint from this wonderful paint holder thing that our DM made, and failing to find the color that I want. Weird. Let me look at my color chart again. Yeah, it's flat flesh. It should be where I was looking. No, maybe it's where I'm not looking. How can I use that color if I can't find it? I could show this thing to you. I've done this in the past. It's really pretty cool. It's a very cool thing. Okay, I'm just going to sigh in frustration here for a moment. Because the one color that I want that should be right where I was looking isn't there. So I'm going to grump. Okay, well, I got to find it. So I'm just going to rotate this some more. I found it. I don't know why it was where it was. What I don't, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't there and now it was. Maybe there was like a wormhole or something that just it went in and out to like Lost Ark Land. And maybe that's what happened, is that it just didn't disappear as much as it just went into another dimension and then came back. That magnifier. It looks like there's a flaw in my boot painting. Yeah. Wonder if this gray paint is still working. Might as well just check it out, check them all out, right? Be looking for little spots that somehow I thought were covered. There's another one on the same spot. On this other boot, it's like right there. And it's 2 out of 2 so far. Didn't get covered with the gray paint. Let's see if the third one has a spot in the same spot. There's a spot there, but it's a slightly different location. Must have just been the way I was holding it. Whatever. Be going for another like 40 minutes or so, I guess. Paint the astronaut faces. I'm going to paint the astronaut faces. And then as I'm doing that, think about what, if anything, I'm going to do with their eyes. The eyes of these astronauts are infinitesimally small, but if they're just painted over, it'll look like their eyes are closed, which would be kind of weird. Hi. Oh no, seriously, you get 3 weeks off? So you're going to go to Norway and you're going to work while you're there. Um, we had the opportunity to go to Norway last November. We took, it used to be, well, it was a Hurtigruten. And I'll do a little ad for Hurtigruten. They run a ferry that goes all the way from Oslo to the North Cape, and I think they even go to Svalbard. And they converted one of their ferries into sort of a cruise ship. They put a beautiful lounge up in the bow, up on the 8th and 9th deck, the top decks, and then they made their little staterooms into cabins. Anyway, we went in November and got to see the Northern Lights, and went through the fjords, and got caught in hurricane force winds. So it was pretty intense. The ship, it was a small, ship, and it got bounced around. We got a certificate that told us that we successfully survived 30-foot plus waves and 70-mile-an-hour winds. Oh, so you keep going? Yeah. Where in Norway are you going to be going? By the way, I've been plugging your stream. I've been asking people to check it out, so hopefully they will. Yeah. Where do you go? Because okay, nice. Okay. Do you go back to the same place every year? We um we ended up our cruise in Oslo, which was an amazing city. By the way, I was really impressed. It sounds absolutely gorgeous near the mountains. Get to spend a week there. Well, we'll get to see it because you're going to make a travelogue movie, stream video, and we're looking. Okay, Are you going to be driving up there? I'm just curious about how you're going to get around. Like, you have to try to put like eyebrows on these guys too. I don't know why, you know, what they really should have done with this model is instead of having their faces show, is what they should have done is just put their visors down. The trip itself, the drive itself is I'm sure gorgeous. It's probably amazing the entire way. I'm going to ask you for some travel advice. There is a chance later this summer that we could end up in Hamburg. I won't go into a whole story about why that might happen, but there's this chance that we could end up in Hamburg, which is, you know, an okay place to visit for a couple of days. But where would you suggest we go if we had like an extra week? And I don't know if this is all going to happen or not. Well, that's a long ferry ride. Yeah, I keep, but that's not too bad. About 3.5 hours here in the States. I live in Michigan. It's hard to believe this, really. But you know, we talk about the Great Lakes, and Lake Michigan is one of the narrowest of the lakes. Okay, from side to side, it also takes about 3.5 hours by ferry to go from Michigan to Wisconsin by ferry across the lake. So that's actually how big the lakes are, and that's, as I said, it's a long, narrow lake. I mean, as much as you can think of a lake as being narrow when it takes 3.5 hours to go across it. That's about how long it takes. It's pretty amazing body of fresh water. We could visit the Legoland. Yeah, Hamburg is really pretty far north. Thank you for that suggestion. That might be kind of a fun thing to do. But yeah, it's just this chance we could end up there, and then potentially have maybe up to another week to travel around. Okay, well, that looks kind of weird, but you know, that didn't turn out too bad. I'll have to decide what to do about its eyes and eyebrows. I'll just leave it as it is. But it looks better with a face than it did without one. Well, I'm envious though of your trip. Well, thanks for dropping in. Um, I'm only doing a half stream today, by the way. This week I'm finally back from everything else that's been going on, but I'll be finishing about 12 or 12:30. But thanks for joining, and maybe you could stop in real briefly on Wednesday before you take your trip. But if not, have an amazing vacation. enjoy your time in Norway. But thanks so much. I really appreciate your support. I remind anybody who's watching this either on, while the stream is going on or maybe later on YouTube that I am not a master modeler or master painter. I'm an old guy who really kind of likes doing this and thinks this is a really cool model, even though it's been very frustrating. Kind of fill the time and mutter on about things that are kind of relaxing. To decide what to do with the face here. The features of the face don't, if you just remember, this is just a model, right? As opposed to like super high quality display model kind of situation. Put it in perspective. But I'm going to try to paint more detail like eyebrows or pupils or anything, or just kind of leave it the way it is. Hard to tell where the model's face ends and where. Anyway, I'll try to fix that a little bit later. Have a good dinner and a good trip. Thank you. Anyway, before I got off track of what I was saying about being off track, is that this is not like professional, put it in a display case with bright lights kind of quality. I'm trying to do, an adequate job to make it look kind of nice. But the secret is the display. The secret is the display to make sure that the lighting is not too bright, not real dim. You don't want it to look shadowed, but I don't want the bright lights on it, not like the extra light from the magnifier thing here. Okay. And don't let anybody get too close to it. So when something like this that I'm building at a level of adequacy, solid B in my work here, the secret is to not let anyone get too close to it. I'm recommending no closer than 18 inches. Okay, but not real bright lighting. And then under those circumstances, it doesn't look too bad. Under this head magnifier, it doesn't look great. Okay. It doesn't look awful. Okay, but it's not what I would call perfect. I'm working under some limitations that I will admit, one of which is being old. The other of which is not being terribly skilled to begin with. But, I think it's coming along okay. But I need to decide what to do. How much, if anything, I can do more with the face of these guys, other than paint them kind of a flesh tone color so that you can tell that there's a face there. Fix this. I've mentioned many times already that this is like 5 layers of white. I got paint over, I just painted it too far and got flesh tone into the helmet area. Scraping it away, revealing one of the layers of white below it. Okay enough to look okay. This is white plastic. And then I put a white primer on. And then I put a pure white. It's called, that I thought would look good, but didn't. Okay. Back on again. So there's a lot of white paint on these guys. You can't really see what I can do to make the face look any better than it does, in terms of like eyebrows or pupils and or something. I think, this might be one of those things where I just say, this is not reality. This is just a model, and that's the way it is. Here, take a look at them one more time and try to decide what, if anything, more I should or could do to make them look good. The only thing that comes to mind is like trying to do some highlighting of the edges of the helmet, but I'm thinking that would just make a mess of things. So when these are lined up in their couches inside the command module, it will be obvious that they are just little plastic figures representative of astronauts and not some sort of hyper-realistic representation or recreation of the astronauts. They are just little plastic guys that are sort of okay painted to look like little plastic guy representations of astronauts. So there, stop at the moment. And I got like 15, somewhere between 15 and 45 minutes left. This is the standing inside the LEM one. This is the walking around on the moon one. I'm going to spend some time on this one because standing inside the LEM one will be barely visible through one of these little windows. Okay, if I succeed in getting it inside of this at all, these guys will be barely visible through the hatch and the tiny little windows in the command module. Maybe I'll do a little bit more on them sometime in the future, but this one, if it's used at all, is actually standing on the display stand. There's a lunar display stand. It's a little plastic square with craters and stuff on it that might be kind of fun to mess with later. So I'm going to spend some time on this one to try to make it look interesting. But for now, I don't really see what more I can do about these. So I'm going to set them inside the tray. Then what I'm going to do is I might start working on this. I could like paint the gloves and the boots and the visor, the gold visor. Had trouble with that before because the gold paint is a little bit thick. It needs a tiny little bit of thinning. Maybe I'll play with that a little bit too. But what I want to do instead is show off. I want to show off our dungeon tiles. Because this is how this stream started, is with the creation of these dungeon tiles. Yep. And over and rotate it. There we go. So these are these are the kinds of dungeon tiles that are featured in our Dungeons and Dragons show. And they're printed on the PLA printers behind me here. And then we prime them and hand paint them. And the hand painting part is what started this stream. So, for example, these are rough stone. Okay. And the way they're printed is that the back and the floor are just one solid piece. So it's very, very sturdy. We primed them and painted them. These will probably, this one, like, for example, would probably be washed with a dark gray wash to make it look a little like it's weathered a little bit or dirty. And then in this plate underneath are little ball magnets. And so the little ball magnets adhere to each other. And look at that. You can take them apart and rearrange them. And this is just a piece of cardboard. And they hold on to each other. So, you know, if you were lucky enough to have these and you wanted to put a dungeon together, you could put any kind of arrangement that you wanted, and you wouldn't have to worry about it during your show or your game or whatever you were doing. You wouldn't have to worry about it falling apart because they hold on to each other. And you don't need any kind of special platform or base or anything. They adhere to each other. And yeah, pretty cool. And these are just some boring ones. We have some pretty fancy ones, like these wooden ones. These are like primed and then base coated in a tan color and then washed in a kind of a reddish brown wash to really bring out the wood grain. And then the stucco is highlighted. That's painted on later. It's kind of fun to paint these actually with. And then we have operating doors, you know, and those are hand painted, so the hinges and the door handles show and stuff. Yeah, I thought that was kind of a difficult painting, doing these kinds of things, but compared to minifig painting, it wasn't that hard. And these tiles are finished on both the inside and the outside, and we have street tiles. So if you had a building like this, that could be a street, a cobblestone street on the outside, and if you were in here and you wanted to go out, you could open the door and walk your little figures out. And we do that on our D&D show. We just had a battle a while ago on a 3-story dungeon, and we were able to go through doors and hide behind the doors and all sorts of stuff. Like if you open this door, and you could open your door and you could stand there and hide behind it, and the enemy could rush in, and you go, oh, I got you behind the door. Anyway, yeah. So these are really cool, and that's how this stream started, by preparing these for a D&D show, which you should watch because it's really cool. So there. But I wanted to show these to you, and I try to do that at least once a week during this stream so that you can see why this stream even exists. It exists to create these dungeon tiles and minifigs that we use, figures for our own players, our own characters. Okay, we have minifigs for our own characters, and where was I going with this? Yes, minifigs for our own characters, and NPCs and monsters that we run into, like this one. I'm sure someday we will meet this one. Some sort of like oozing, it's growing up from tendrils on the ground and turning into this big fungus moss monster kind of thing. That's the kind of thing we occasionally meet. Maybe we'll run into a demon frog. You never know, or a demon toad or something, whatever it is. So yeah, there's that kind of stuff that goes on our show. And I still got some time left, so I'm going to start working on the walking on the moon astronaut. Why not? I've got a little time, so I'll do that. Okay, I need the gray paint. There it is for the boots, and then I need the darker gray. I wish I could remember what color I used for that. The color I used for the glows. I think it was. Sometimes I wonder about myself. I'm matching colors here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was dark gray. And then I used azure for the fingertips on the gloves. It's a little lighter than it should be, but it shows up. You can see the tiny little finger points on that. Sure, why not? Let's paint gloves. I'm pretty sure this is the color I used for the gloves. And it comes pretty close to the color of the actual gloves on the real moon suit. So what can I talk about here? I really need to check on the music situation, because it would be really good if we could play the music. But that's another story. Well, it really makes a difference whether this little light is on or not. Little LED light there. Okay, I'm painting moon suit gloves. See this? Yeah, like I'm on screen if my head isn't in the way. Oh, you're, you're gone on a very important trip, kind of a working thing. Had to do, was thing that needed to be done. And we flew back on the 4th of July in the evening, which was kind of cool, actually. It was just right around sunset. And so we flew over. Fireworks, fairly decent fireworks are legal, right? And it was like, I would say, like 1 out of every 10 houses we were flying over kind of an urban area were shooting off fireworks, and they weren't very big. Okay, they weren't big commercial kinds of things that you get at professional fireworks displays, but they were visible, and it was kind of cool because it was almost like the whole area was lit up like with fireflies, all these little sparks of things from fireworks that people were setting off. I understand that there's a strong encouragement to not be setting off fireworks because of the noise that they make, which is really disturbing to wildlife, and the flashing lights, and also all of the colors. Colors come from basically burning heavy metals or metal oxides, or some combination of heavy metals and something else, which are for the most part kind of poisonous. So I mean, we've been doing fireworks for thousands of years in the world, so it's a big deal. But yeah, anyway, it was kind of, it was fun to watch it though. It made the flight back a little kind of interesting that, even at 25,000 plus feet, it's all the little, they were like all these little sparks from all the people down below setting off, fireworks. So I just needed to say that it was kind of a pretty thing, to watch. And, out outside watching them from in a park or something, some professional show. But that didn't happen. Not this year, because we had this really important thing that we needed to do, which is why I wasn't streaming for the last week. But now I am. But they are going to be shortened streams. I am only going to be going until about 12 to 12:30 the rest of this week, because things, unpaid intern. I'd like to say that. That's kind of fun to say. Being an unpaid intern, I to do other stuff. So I'll kind of apologize for the rest of this week, but as you can see, not that much is happening here anyway. Very slow progress on this. So on Wednesday, say it correctly, Wednesday, I will be moving on to probably spending the entire stream figuring out how to get the windows into the lunar module. Since I will have, I mean, other than finishing the detail on the standing on the moon astronaut, which I'll probably work on. Detail on this not at all historically accurate representation of the standing on the moon astronaut. What did I do? Did I stick my fingers on this glove? Look, oh my God. Good grief. I don't know. I mean, that was just incredibly stupid. Okay. I stuck my fingers on the glove as I'm holding it and rotating it. Pulled the paint off. That wasn't that big a deal. But I got it all over the back of the backpack. Which is a big deal. Lovely. Oh, look at that. Got it all over the back of the backpack. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to clean that up. That's too much to just scrape off. Have to I'm going to have to scrape some of it off so it doesn't show through, and then spray the paint into a container and paint over it. That was just amazingly stupid. I'm really unhappy about that. Just seriously, I couldn't hold on to this without putting my fingers on the glove. A level of painting incompetence unrivaled for quite a while on this stream. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be such a big deal, except that this is a figure that will be seen in 3D, all the way around. You'll be able to look at it from all the different angles. And so, yeah, I need to somehow fix that. I guess the only saving grace there is that it's mostly on the bottom of the backpack. And if worse came to worse, if I can't match the colors correctly, I can paint the backpack. I can just do that. But I just want to slap myself silly. Okay. Well, I've got a few minutes left. So what I'm going to do since I'm I can't believe that right near the end of the stream, as things were moving along, I was getting the glove okay. It was looking okay, and then I stuck my finger on it. So those of you who are watching this, this was an example of a how not to. If I had had my oops button, talked about having an oops button, if I had had that, I would definitely have used it right then. That was an oops. That was almost a major oops. Now I'm looking. I had the exacto. There it is. Yeah. Always put things back. Put things back where they belong, and then you'll be able to find them when you want them later. And I didn't do that either. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to scrape away as much of this gray paint as I can. Maybe because it's white on white on white, maybe I'll be able to salvage this enough so that I don't have to repaint it. put these back on again so I can see what I'm doing. Maybe I'll be able to clean it up enough. I don't know. I really made a mess of it. But at least because the white tends to be kind of translucent, I don't want the gray to show through. Maybe yeah, this was just beyond belief stupid. Just really, 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 really amateur. Well, that's not fair. That word just means unpaid, which is true in this case. Sometimes it means, it's taken on a disparaging kind of note, but it shouldn't. Because there are amateurs, which means that they're not paid for what they're doing, who are really good at it, like amateurs in sports. This was just an example of being careless. What's the right word for it? This was a careless event, and it ends up taking a lot of time to fix. But, you get to watch me try to repair a significant example of carelessness. And then I need to decide whether I'm going to try to repaint this or not. Part of it will be how I decide to do the fit and finish on the model backpack. But it's not too bad. You can see the surface has been scratched. But there's not big blots of gray on it anymore, at least. Okay, well, I got the gloves painted. And then there's a spot there that doesn't have paint on it. Sure, what happened here? Touched it again. Maybe after I messed it up, I didn't fix it. Well, if I dare come back to this later on Wednesday, what I'll be doing is painting the fingertips blue, because the authentic Walking on the Moon spacesuit, the fingertips were made out of a different material than the rest of the glove, and they were blue. So I'm going to add that detail to it. And then I've got a spot. Oh, okay. That brushed off. That's good. I need to paint the visor gold. And then there's all these little weird things that don't exist on the real suit. The camera does, but I'll try to do that. Okay, well, I was doing okay, and then I messed up. And what did I do? Did I mess up again? I just cleaned this off. How did that get back on there? Okay, this is getting to the point where I just need to leave it alone. because every time I touch it, something bad happens, and I'm tired of something bad happening every time I touch it. So there, no longer touching it. All right. So I'm going to be wrapping up here early because, as I said, I'm just doing half sessions this week because of things. And I'll be back on Wednesday at about 10. Oh, sorry. Just itchy eyes, too. I'll be back about usual time on Wednesday. Do another couple hours of getting little bits of things done. Like I got these guys kind of done. Just sitting down here. Let me move this up here so you can see what I'm working on. I got these guys pretty much done. They look like little plastic astronaut figures. I'll work on the walking on the moon one a bit, and then probably spend most of the time figuring out how to get these windows in. Okay. Measuring them, cutting them, testing them, adhering them. And if there's sometimes these things just work. I had that happen once before. It's just I thought that it would be a very difficult thing to do, to attach these little wing doors on the escape module. I thought it would be a horrible thing because the contact points are really tiny, and I just used the right contact cement and attached them, and they just went in the right place right away. It was pretty amazing. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So we'll find out on Wednesday what happens with these windows, right? Find out if I have just kind of a miraculous success story, or whether it is just going to be not. Yep. Anyway, I want to thank you for joining in today. Sorry about being gone for so long, and I apologize in advance for the abbreviated sessions yet this week. But I will be back on Wednesday morning, and we'll see how this goes. Hopefully things will go. Thanks so much. See you then.